Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today I am delighted to be showing you the deck that almost won the Pokemon Trading Card Game World Championships. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Golisopod, Garbodor. We expected both these Pokemon. We did not expect them together. It lost a heartbreaking series in the final to Diego Caceraga's Gardevoir deck, and had just a couple of things gone differently, it could have won World. But it's still a brilliant deck. It's a deck that we did not expect to see, so let's take a look at how it worked. So Golisopod is one of these Pokemon that came about in Burning Shadows, which became legal for the very first time on the first day of the World Championships. So we always suspected that a lot of players might not be fully prepared for these new Pokemon, and some players might use this to their advantage. Golisopod's got 3 attacks, but the main one here is First Impression. If he was on the bench and became active this turn, 120 for a single energy. Now, if you evolve an active Wimpod, it doesn't count, but as long as you bring him active this turn, 120 for a single energy. Now you add a double colourless energy, and then you can do 100 with Armor Press, and you take 20 less the following turn, or you can do Crossing Cut GX, this once per game GX attack, 150, but with a Choice Band it does 180, and it gets KOs on Pokemon like Tapu Lele, like Drampa, that featured quite heavily in the top 8 of the World Championships this year. And really, Golisopod here, it's all about just hitting First Impression for 120 every turn. Now, in terms of the Wimpod, you want to make sure, like Naoto did, and I'm sorry if the pronunciations are fairly poor, you play the Burning Shadows Wimpod with Wimp Out. Turn 1, you get to retreat for free, and for that reason he was playing one copy anyway, of the promo Tapu Koko with 0 retreat. Turn 1, you use Bridget to search out 2 Pokemon and the Tapu Koko. You retreat to the Tapu Koko, so that on turn 2 you can then retreat Tapu Koko and hit 120 with Golisopod. Now, Garbodor did also feature very heavily in this deck, and he actually played both copies of the Garbodor. This one, with Garbotoxin, turns off all abilities, and with Gardevoir making a big splash this weekend, that was crucial. But we expected decks like Decidueye, which was around a lot, and Volcanion saw a bit of play, and we were expecting Metagross, and Garbodor just turns them all off. But we also had the newer one from Guardians Rising for a single energy 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. And you can see now with these 3 main Pokemon how the deck comes together. You're hitting for 120 damage for 1 energy every turn. Your opponent doesn't have access to abilities, but if they go too nuts with trainers, you are going to punish them with Trash Avalanche. That's a bit annoying. The other Pokemon that was played in this deck is Tapu Lele. You are playing double colourless, so you can use the attack here, but really it's all about the ability Wonder Tag that allows you to search for any supporter you might like. And oh my goodness, did Naoto make use of these supporters. Now, we've already mentioned Bridget, that allows you to search for free basic Pokemon and put them on your bench. There are very few better turn 1s in the current format than just using Bridget to search out free basics and popping them on the bench. But there were certain supporters in this particular deck that were just too good. Acerola. It allows you to pick up one of your damaged Pokemon and all cards attached to it. So your opponent does a bunch of damage to your Golisopod, but you've got 210 HP, so you're not getting that easily KO'd. And then you just play Acerola. You pop your Tapu Koko active because it's got free retreat. You've then got Golisopod and an energy, so as long as you've got a Wimpod on the bench, you evolve, attach the energy, retreat the Tapu Koko, hit for another 120, and you do this every single turn. Acerola in this particular deck is busted, and if you can just hit for 120 every turn with Golisopod, while having an ability lock Garbodor on the bench to turn off your opponent's abilities, very few decks can deal with this. to be perfectly honest. That is why this deck was so gosh darned good this past weekend. And of course, we should give a shout out to Guzma here. Now, in the video games, Guzma is your main antagonist. One of them. And Golisopod is his Pokemon of choice. So it's only fitting here that it would be so synergistically fantastic. You've got a Golisopod in the active. But you just hit for 120. You've got to get him to the bench. You use Guzma to pick a Pokemon off your opponent's bench, switch to your Tapu Koko or anything that's got a Float Stone attached, hopefully your ability lock in Garbodor, and then you can just free retreat and hit for 120 again. So it's not just Acerola here, it's also Guzma, and they are the options. It's great. The other supporter that's really important in this deck is teammates. If your opponent does get a KO, you can use teammates to search your deck for any 2 cards. So it could be a Golisopod and an Energy, or a Garbodor and a Floatstone to turn off abilities. You are going to give up prizes now and then, and let's not forget in the current format, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Tapu Lele's Wonder Tag to search these out. And we've got Versus Seeker to reuse them. So let's be really clear about this. This is fantastic. Also, quick shout out to Heavy Ball in this deck. A card we don't see a huge amount of play from. But Heavy Ball allows you to grab any of your Pokemon with a retreat cost of 3 or more. Bad news, you don't get to search out your Tapu Lele. Good news, you can search out your Wimpod. You can search out your Golisopod. You can search out your Garbodor that does the attacking, or the Garbodor that turns off abilities. It's a really good card in this particular deck. Now, in terms of some other item cards that are important here, you've got Choice Band. Like I've said, it means that Crossing Cut GX gets a one-hit KO on stuff like Tapu Lele and Drampa. That's important. And you've got Floatstone, which firstly turns on Garbodor's ability, turning off your opponent's abilities, but it also just allows you to free retreat. And as we've seen, it's so important in this deck that you can free retreat whenever you feel like it. Also, Rescue Stretcher to get the Pokemon back, and Field Blower. Now, Field Blower can get rid of your opponent's Floatstones, so they can't retreat. Your opponent's Fighting Fury Bout to lower their HP. Your opponent's Choice Band to lower their damage output. We did see a bit of Po-Town this weekend. Puts 3 damage counters on you when you evolve. You want to Field Blower that. But one of the cool plays we saw a couple times this weekend is players, and Naoto did do this, actually Field Blower his own Floatstone off his Garbodor to turn on abilities like Tapu Lele's Wonder Tag to search out an Acerola, before then attaching another tool to turn it off again. Really quite funky, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe he also played a Hex Maniac. Sometimes you need to turn off abilities and you haven't got your Garbodor out. Or turning off abilities is so important that you don't want to risk your opponent having a Field Blower to get rid of your Floatstone and turn on their abilities. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where Hex Maniac comes in. Now, in terms of energy, obviously the most energy here was dedicated to Grass because of the effectiveness of First Impression and the fact that it really is the thing you want to be using most often. However, there were double colourless energies in here because it fueled Tapu Lele, it fueled Golisopod's other attacks, and it fueled Acid Spray from your Garbodor from Guardians Rising, which is a very good attack in certain situations, getting rid of energy on a coin flip. But there were also rainbow energies here. Rainbow energies are good for 2 reasons. Firstly, they allow you to use Trash Avalanche on Garbodor, but secondly, they don't stop you using First Impression. Obviously, you want to be putting a Grass energy on Golisopod. I mean, if you put a rainbow energy on, something like a Drampa can get rid of it. That's bad. But you know what? It's actually really, really cool here just to be able to use Trash Avalanche in the mid to late game. And as a side note here, double colourless energy can also be used for Tapu Koko's Flying Flip. And while we're talking about double colourless energy, I believe Naoto actually played a single copy of Enhanced Hammer just to get rid of these random special energies like a double colourless on Gardevoir if it looks like Gardevoir's attack power is getting a little bit out of hand. Now, we didn't see any switch or escape rope from Naoto here, and the reasoning I believe is very simple. You're playing Floatstone and Tapu Koko as free retreaters. You're playing Guzma, you're playing Ace Roller, and you don't want to be playing too many items with the amount of Garbodor running around. So you know what? Getting rid of Switch and Escape Rope sounds like a decent idea to me. There was also no Forest of Giant Plants. But then again, really here, as long as you're rolling on turn 2, you can not use Forest of Giant Plants, and the great news is that it then opens up extra spots in your deck. Now, in terms of other big decks that were around this weekend, the top cut really was just Gardevoir and Garbodor. Gardevoir's a difficult matchup, but it takes 7 energy, or 6 and a choice band, for Gardevoir to get a one-hit KO on you. And you're only going to be having 1 energy on you. It means that it takes a lot for Gardevoir to get the KO. You're turning off their abilities, which is big, and you can use Ace Roller if they don't get the one-hit KO. Difficult, but not unwinnable. And the other huge deck was Garbodor. But First Impression gets a one-hit KO. Now, it was played with Espeon, and it was played with Drampa, but Crossing Cut GX can get a one-hit KO on Drampa. Confusion really doesn't do much from Espeon, given that you can just use Ace Roller, and you're planning on switching every turn anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you are confused. And Psychic doesn't do much damage, because just like Gardevoir, they want you to have lots of energy, and you've only got 1 energy attached. Decidueye was also a very common deck, but you can take advantage of their Forest of Giant Plants, and you can turn off their abilities as well. Similarly, Rayquaza did see a fair bit of play this weekend, but the ability lock combined with the early pressure really was quite important. Could have played Sudowoodo, but I don't believe that it did. The one deck that really should have given this deck trouble really was this Volcanion deck, and we saw some Japanese players playing it with Turtonator and Ho-Oh and Salazzle. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? They weren't the best decks this weekend, they weren't that successful, and I really do think even turning off Volcanion's ability, this has got to be a pretty bad matchup, unless you really do get a lot of early pressure, or they use a lot of item cards to open up Garbodor. But if they're hitting for weakness and not playing many items, I think this is a bit rough. Luckily, not the biggest deck this weekend. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Golisopod almost won Worlds. I've put the deck list up on the screen. It was put up on Pokemon.com yesterday, so have a gander. It's a great list. I'm going to be playing it on my stream tonight at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. Going to be starting at 6 p.m. UK time, so come along and join in the fun, see how it works. Congratulations to Naoto Suzuki for coming so close with a really fun deck. And I know people are saying, oh, everyone knew Garbodor was going to do well. Yes, they did, but I don't think anyone expected this particular build to do well. Hey ho, I enjoyed it. Maybe next year. Now, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWossy and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. Remember, live action, 6 p.m. tonight. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus pods, etc., then check out patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.